Hey, it's Aaron from GameEnthus.com, and this video is about Flutter. Flutter is a tile placement game being published by Phased Shift Games. It's 2 to 5 players, plays in about 30 to 45 minutes, is intended for ages 8 and up. In Flutter, players are going to be trying to gather the most pollen, but in order to get that pollen, they have to pay off the pollinators. You know, pollinators, like hummingbirds, ladybugs, moths, butterflies, dragonflies. You know, pollinators. Flutter is currently towards the tail end of its Kickstarter campaign, and full disclosure, in this how to play video, you are going to be seeing a lot of prototype pieces, so bear that in mind. This how to play video was produced during the crowdfunding process, so some of the pieces and parts of the components you're going to be seeing are very much going to be prototypes. You might see wasps when you're hearing a word like bees. That's okay, the rules are still going to be the same. Now at this point, I'm going to go into more depth about how to pay off those pollinators. Let's go. This is what a 3-player setup might look like. It probably also behooves me to mention what the object of the game is. The object of Flutter is to end up being the player who has the most pollen at the end of the game. Everybody has their petal points markers here, and as you are earning different values of the colors, you'll be moving them along the tracker. Now we're ready to play. The first player is going to be the yellow player. And the first thing they're able to do is the first step, which is to rotate the sun. However, there is an exception to that rule. On the very first turn of the game, the first step is ignored. On every subsequent turn, with the exception of the very first turn, the first step players would take is to rotate the sun 1 tile. Only for the very first turn of the game is the first step ignored. In a 5-player game, each time it's the first player's turn, they would move the sun 1 additional stack forward. So in a 5-player game, if the sun token was here, the first player would move it 2 spaces, whereas everybody else would move it 1 space. Step 2, selecting a tile. If the player wishes to choose this tile stack, which is directly after the sun, going clockwise, they may do so. However, if a player wishes to skip a tile, they must pay 1 token the same color of the pollinator that they're skipping. So if the first player wanted to skip this tile, they would have to pay 1 purple petal to go to the next pile. Now the sun would stay where it is. You're just skipping where you're drawing from. If you wish to skip the next tile, it will cost you 2 of that pollinator's color. So this will cost 1 purple to skip. This will cost 2 blue to skip, this would cost 3 purple to skip, and this would cost 4 blue to skip. So you're always paying the cost of the color of the pollinator and whichever one comes after. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So essentially it would cost you 10 to come all the way around if you really want the token that the sun happens to be on, no matter where it is. The first tile that can be selected for the starting player on this turn will be this pile right here. So they could take this tile and place it. Because it is the first turn, no one has any petal points right now. Everybody's at 0 for all 4 colors. However, as you continue on in the game, you're going to have petals that you can spend in order to skip different piles. Step number 3, placing the tile. You may rotate or flip a tile any kind of way you want. So you can flip it over, rotate it, you can do all, you can manipulate it however you wish, but its placement must result in the growing of at least 1 flower. Growing the flowers will get you petal points. You're going to want petal points. Player 1 could place that tile like that, placing this red petal on the tile they just picked next to the red petal on the rain bee, aka the starting tile. They also could place anything on the ends because it's rainbowed, so it can be any color you wish it to be. However, if you look at this tile, you'll see that there's a single red petal on the ends, but then there's 2 yellow and 2 blue. So it probably would behoove that player to maybe place it like this, which will result in 3 yellows. 2 on the tile they placed, matching up with 1 that's already there. Tiles in place, the next step is grow flowers. Because I have 2 yellow here matching up with this wild that can be anything, I essentially have 3 yellow petals. So I will come over here and take my yellow petal token, and I'm just going to put it on top of it so you can see a little bit better. So that just means that yellow is up to 3. So now I have 3 yellow petals. It is also worth noting that your mismatches also get deducted from your petal points. I unfortunately did not show that when I was recording the table portion, but whatever mismatched flowers you make will also cost you those petal points. So be careful where you place your tiles. Okay, so in order to demonstrate the 5th step you can take, which is to enclose a tile, we're going to take a turn for the purple player. So the purple player is going to start their turn off by rotating the sun, which just so happens to be back here. The purple player really wants to enclose this tile here so they can earn 2 pollen points for doing so. In order to skip all the way over here, it's going to cost the purple player 1 red petal. I'm going to go down to 3. 2 yellow petals. So they're at 6 now for yellow. It's going to go down to 4. And then they can take this. Purple player is going to take this tile and they're going to place it. Once again, in my haste, I did make a mistake. I should have deducted 2 yellow petals and a single blue petal for the mismatch you see on the far right side. So as I said earlier, when you do place a tile and you do have mismatched flowers, as long as you have a flower that does match all of its colors, you're good, but you do have to deduct any mismatches you do. Unfortunately, I did not do that, so be better than me. So they have 2 petals here. There were 2 petals on it already, so it's a total of 4. So they're at 3 for red petals. It's going to jump up to 7. Very nice. The purple player is now enclosed this tile and also this tile. We'll get to that in a second, which means all of its sides are now inaccessible. Once the tile's been enclosed, whoever does it has to pay a certain number of petal points to the pollinator that is on it. So the pollinator on this tile here happens to be a yellow ladybug. So because the purple player enclosed this tile, they're going to have to pay the pollinator on this tile. They have to pay this pollinator 2 yellow because it is yellow and it provides 2 pollen. All these little icons essentially mean pollen. That's the pollen you're going to get for enclosing those tiles. In this tile, purple player is going to get 2 pollen. Very nice. It's also going to require that they pay 2 petals of the same color as the pollinator. Pollinator happens to be yellow, so they're going to go from 4 down to 2. They also get another 2 pollen because their own bee marker happened to be on that tile that they enclosed. That is good for them. Look at that. They also enclosed this tile, and the white player has their bee token on this tile. So the white player would earn 2 pollen because now the tile that they're on is enclosed. So even though it's not the white player's turn, they're still going to earn those pollen because their bee token is on a tile that has now been enclosed. The purple player also has to pay 3 blue for enclosing this tile. This moth has 3 blue diamonds on it, which means it's going to cost 3 blue petals. So they're at 9, they're going to go down to 6. Now they have 6 blue petals, they paid the cost, they earn an additional 3 pollen. So it did cost them an additional 3, but they're going to get a 7 pollen on a single turn. So you might be asking yourself, what happens if you enclose a tile and you don't have the petals to pay for it? If you enclose a tile but you don't have enough petals to pay for, each of your opponents immediately gets bonus pollen equal to half of the tile's value rounded up. And you don't gain any pollen for that enclosure. Purple player also created what's called a pollen pond. So if your tile placement encloses any dead spaces, you fill that dead space with water tiles. And for each water tile you place, you immediately gain a bonus pollen point. So you could put that one here like that, and then put that one here. So the purple player would earn an additional 2 pollen points for creating this pollen pond. It's also worth mentioning that the rain bee, which is the starter tile, there is no cost to enclose it, and there also is no pollen available for enclosing it. So enclosing this tile results in essentially nothing. The 6th step that players can take is to place their bee onto a tile, assuming it hasn't already been placed. So let's say the white player was wrapping their turn up and they decided to take their B and place it on this tile right here. The sixth step, placing your B, is optional. You don't have to do it if your B has not already been placed. Once your B is on a tile that's been enclosed, you would immediately move that B to a tile that has not been enclosed. Regardless of whether your turn ends after step 4, 5, or 6, it'll be the next player's turn going clockwise. So the sun token is going to be moving around all throughout the game, and players are going to be whittling away at these piles until one of them has nothing left. And that triggers the end of the game. Once one of the piles is emptied, the active player finishes their turn as normal, and then continuing in player order, all other players take one additional turn. If your petals end up on certain spots, you will earn points at the end of the game. So it behooves you to at least have all of your petals above 4, because you earn 1 pollen for 4 and 5, and it just goes up like that. So if you have 21 of a certain color petal, which is a lot, you'd earn 7 points at the end of the game. And the game comes to an end. Whoever has the most pollen points at the end of the game wins. If there's a tie, the tie goes to the player who has the most remaining petals. And if there's still a tie, the players share the victory. And that is how you play Flutter. So that was Flutter. I'm a big fan of tile placing games. I do like to play some tiles, but I do have to admit that I made the assumption that I would enjoy Flutter, which I have. I've certainly enjoyed my plays of it. One thing I was not really aware of initially is just how much strategy there really is in the game. You don't have any control over the tiles that you have in front of you, but if you get your timing right and tile placement right, as you saw on the example on how to play, you can really have some incredible turns where you're not only scoring because you've enclosed tiles with your B on it, you can also rack up more points for creating a pollen pond. So there's a lot of different ways you can score some points in the game. Sometimes you help your opponent out, but then sometimes it's also worth it. So Flutter is one of those games where it looks like, oh, it's colorful, there's butterflies, or a dragonfly, or a ladybug. It has to be very simple. And it can be. You can play it on a more basic level, but there is also some much appreciated depth in it, where you can really be a lot more strategic about how you score those points and how you get those petal points. Flutter is certainly something I'm looking forward to playing again. Just some other items of note. The manufacturing of Flutter will be using Forest Stewardship Council compliant paper and wood components. And Phase Shift Games has also partnered with the Save Our Monarchs Foundation, and for every copy of the game, they'll be donating $1 to help the endangered monarch butterflies. Just some other reasons to lend support to Flutter, which is already a very fun, very enjoyable game. So anyway, that's gonna do it for me. Thank you for watching. Take care, stay safe, and be blessed.